share with you my story, would you share your dollar with me? Bad times are coming and I reap what I done sowed. Hey, hey. Well, let me tell you something, all that glitters ain't gold. Hey, hey. It's been a long old troublesome road, and I'm looking for somebody come and help me carry this load. I need a dollar, that's what I need. Hey, hey. Well, I need a dollar, that's what I need. Well, I don't know if I'm walking on solid ground, 'cause everything around me is falling down. And all I want is for someone to help me. I had a job, but the boss man let me go. He said, I'm sorry, but I won't be needing your help no more. I said, please, Mr. Boss Man, I need this job more than you know. But he gave me my last paycheck and he sent me on out the door. Well, I need
KBLA Talk
dollar,
1580. It's time for a Freedmen
what I
Fridays
need.
segment. This is what we do every week. It's meant to be a comprehensive reparations conversation. Keep us up to date, on point, and be part of the solution with the incredible momentum we have towards the payment of the debt owed to Black Americans, the descendants of enslaved persons. We are meant to be joined this hour by Rizza Islam, and while he gets himself ready to get ready and be on with us, I will give you some updates on some of the things going on around reparations and reparatory justice, because there is movement. There continues to be movement in this area. In fact, we are talking mostly focused in this show about the debt that's owed to Black Americans, because that's who mostly we are that listen to this station, Black Americans, African Americans, whether you're Pan-Africanist or you're an FBA, ADOS, or wherever you're coming from on the issue. Reparations is moving. And we mostly talk about government, but reparations can be paid by private industry, can be paid by institutions, and can be paid also as well by educational organizations. Or now there's a call, there's a growing call for the Roman Catholic Church to pay reparations based on the money that they took out of Africa. This conversation has been taking place under the old Pope, and now there's concern that this whoever this new Pope will move away from that. Now, Pope Francis didn't say, oh, we'll pay reparations, but at least he was willing to listen, and the delegation did go to the Vatican to have that conversation. So their activists are tracking that with the conclave in the selection of a new pope. The city of Chicago Reparations Task Force is now accepting applications from Chicago residents. If you live in Chicago, just as Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica here on the West Coast, if you live in Chicago, you can get on that task force for the reparations study there. We have had one here in the city of Los Angeles, so they're happening on the state level, the county level, and in municipalities. In this case, it is a task force that was established by executive order last year on Juneteenth, and it's a 40-member body. 25 will be nominated by the mayor's office, 15 selected through public application. So if you want to be one of those potential applicants, you can complete your application right now. And you have until the 20th of this month, May 20th, 2025, to go ahead and apply for that. And this is a task force that's funded within the city budget. And again, this is an interesting development, what's happening, where cities and counties are setting aside their own funds or allocating money, streams of money, i.e. the cannabis funds in the city of Evanston that are earmarked to go directly to reparations. And I believe there will be pushback, just as we talked about last hour, where there's pushback coming from the Trump administration over convictions, in this case, the conviction of one cop in the Winco case. The Deputy White House Chief of Staff said that he believes white Americans, and this was about a week ago, he said, Stephen Miller said to Newsmax last Friday, that white Americans should receive reparations for the impact of illegal immigration on this country. He was talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and he says that there are damages to Americans. And Stephen Miller is a white supremacist, so he's not talking about black Americans. He says that, and it's interesting to me, the Trump administration has already claimed that white people who didn't get scholarships or didn't get admission to colleges should get reparations for DEI, that people impacted by DEI should get reparations. Now, Stephen Miller is saying the U.S. should pay reparations for the impact of immigration, but the Trump administration has specifically come out. Well, it wasn't an administration yet. The Trump campaign specifically came out against reparations for black people. So I'm still waiting for Mark Carter and others who have said, Isaiah Washington, the actor, and others who have said that the Trump administration will pay reparations, that they will be the ones, and the people who supported this administration, this Republican group that's currently in power, partly based on the idea that they thought they would be able to get some reparations for black folks, and there's no signs of that happening. We briefly spoke about CARICOM and the rising calls for reparations for Caribbean nations to be paid by the British. In fact, the great-great-grandson of this guy, William Gladstone, who was a prime minister of Britain in the 19th century, spoke at the UN and said he was totally freaked out when he learned that his ancestors held slaves in Jamaica and Guyana. And that's not really that surprising or far-fetched, given the fact that those are colonies of the British Empire. And both him and a journalist spoke at UN headquarters about a week and a half ago, once again at the UN Permanent Forum on Peoples of African Descent. They had a week-long session, and once again they are calling for reparations for descendants of enslaved persons in the Caribbean. Looks like we will actually move forward with our conversation on reparations with activists and influencer Rizza Islam. We'll do that when we come forward. It's a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality, because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial, because yes it is. Don't stay in bargaining, where you're praying for a miracle, and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is, we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. I mean, mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
It's me, Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash. I see those dry elbows, baby. But don't worry, get moisturized right in the shower. So hydrated you can skip the lotion after.
Don't wanna see it dry no more. Skin so moisturized with body wash.
Look at you now, no more dry skin. Your skin gets the moisture it craves with
Olay Indulgent Moisture Body Wash.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Yep. Turn up for reparations. We do it every Friday around here, and I'm happy to welcome into this conversation a man you know well. He addresses all kinds of issues of concern to the community. He says he's devoted his life to educating, uplifting, and motivating through viable solutions to our issues around the country and around the world. He's straight out of Compton, the youngest of 10. He is an organizer and a community icon. Reza Islam, good morning.
Peace, my sister. How are you?
I'm blessed. How you doing?
I'm very good. I will say the same. It's good to hear the show is going very well, and always good to hear you educating and doing what you do best for our people. I'm truly honored to be invited on again.
Appreciate it. You talk about a lot of different things, and we've talked about many of them, but I don't believe that we've ever talked about reparations in our conversations. So I'm not even clear exactly where you are on it. So let's start there. What's your basic thought about the issue of reparations, reparatory justice, restitution, the making whole, the paying of the debt to Black people, both in the United States and globally?
Well, the first thing I would say is definitely reparatory justice is needed. So reparations are definitely something that I am in favor of. It is something that was given to virtually all of those who were negatively affected by government-organized hits, I would say, targeted destruction of their economics, targeted destruction of their leadership, targeted destruction of their education, and the like. So anyone who has been affected in that way intentionally by an organized government, I would say, deserves that. And of course, Black people, above all, in this nation, definitely deserve that.
And it's interesting that you start there with how common reparations are, because there was a great study out of Harvard, and it listed all the things that people have been paid reparations for in this country specifically, and how those mechanisms are in place to do it. But people frame this as if it was something outrageous and unusual. When it comes to Black people, I should say.
Well, yes, that's because for some reason, when it comes to everyone else, the conversation is much easier. It is more digestible, and it's something that is more acceptable. But when it comes to Black people specifically, it's taboo. It becomes an issue. It becomes, well, the government doesn't necessarily have it in the budget for that. I don't think that's feasible. You guys need to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Stop trying to get things for free. They're going through this whole gaslighting circumstance when the Native Americans, they receive a certain level of reparations and kind. The Chinese receive certain levels of reparations, I believe $20,000 per head, along with
Japanese,
other allotments.
Japanese.
Japanese, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And also, other individuals and groups. So it's just when it comes to Black people where all of a sudden reparations becomes this very difficult conversation when we absolutely have the legitimate reason and circumstance that justifies it.
One of the arguments against reparations is that it's not fair for white Americans and others who are not Black to pay costs for something that they did not do. They didn't have slaves. They didn't participate in Jim Crow and the subsequent harms. What would you say to those folks?
Well, the first thing is, if you want to go biblically, in the Bible, it talks about how the sins of the fathers shall be visited onto his and her children, meaning the mother and the father of their children. That's number one. Number two, if white people in general, and it's not just necessarily white people, it's from the U.S. government on down, but if they want to benefit as they do, meaning bank accounts, land allotments, economic boosts from that generation that started this and all the way down, they benefit greatly as a result of what took place. So if you have benefited for the vast majority, then there should be a balancing of the circumstance and a putting together something that levels the playing field. So it's not necessarily, you did anything today, but you benefit from what your ancestors did yesterday. So is it just going to be, well, you guys, hey, sorry, it happened and do whatever you're going to do, but we're not going to level the playing field. So there has to be a level of fairness to level and balance out everything that took place.
Mm. Do you see it? How do you see reparations? Do you see it as in the form of cash? Do you see it as legislation, apologies? Like what forms should reparations take, in your opinion, Reza?
In the first spirit of everything, an atonement process should definitely take place. So acknowledging the wrong should be something that should take place at the very beginning, I would say. So at least acknowledging it, because as of right now, believe it or not, there's more of a gaslighting of black people primarily than there is acknowledging of what happened to our ancestors. So that's the first thing. So acknowledging that it did exist, that it did happen, and how it affected us up to this point. So that includes all of us who are hardworking people. We work every day, yourself, myself, and, any of our families that were connected to this. That's first thing, acknowledging the wrong. Number two, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad specified, and Minister Farrakhan and many of our leaders have specified that land is the number one thing that we should receive, number one. And then, of course, down the line from there, it can be cash, it can be certain other things. But land, I would say, is the primary thing, not just cash, because in our mentality right now, yes, we can receive some cash, that's fine, but we more than likely would just go run out and spend it very quickly. And I would say, and depending on who it is, quite unintelligently. But that's up to us, and the decision is not really up to anybody else to determine that. So land, number one. Other things can be involved in that, including cash. And it's really up to us, when it comes to how we're going to spend that.
Yeah, I don't like that argument, because if you owe me money, you still have to pay me, even if you think I'm going to go do something stupid with it. We can.
Look what this government does when they receive money, or should I say, they lose trillions of dollars every year. Apparently, right? Our tax dollars, black people who work hard today. So we pay into this tax system that doesn't necessarily give us the benefit that we pay the taxes into, and then all of a sudden this money goes missing. And this money is supposed to be to build the roads, to help with educational systems, to help with the operations of the day-to-day society. But then all of a sudden this money keeps going missing, and we're paying into it, unwillingly, mind you. It's just out of our check, and but we're working, hard-working people, not making an excuse, saying, well, my ancestors did this and you guys did this to my ancestors, so I'm not going to work until you pay my reparations. No, we're working. So we're not making any excuse. But then on our end, when we bring up the topic of reparations that we deserve, then it's, well, we don't know how you're going to spend the money. Well, we don't know how you're spending it, because you're sending money to go and bomb children. You're sending money to go and take over nations. I mean, we can really go in that direction, but it's just not up to them to decide what we do with it. It's really up to them to just decide to make the wrong right.
Do you believe that reparations should be paid or, handed out, doled out, whether it's cash, land, or policy, on the city level, state level, county, federal, or globally, or all of the above? Like, I know there's an argument going on that says if cities are doing it, that kind of lets the feds off the hook, or that if the feds are doing it, that lets corporate America off the hook. How do you view that?
Well, the first thing, definitely the federal government is the number one. So it can't just be state or, back and forth, federal or just the state. Everyone who was responsible and everyone who benefited from the government level as it pertains to what was done. So the federal government, of course, was involved. So they have to be number one. And then the states, primarily the states who impacted the majority of our ancestors. We're talking about Virginia. We're talking about Texas. We're talking about the Carolinas. We're talking about these different slave states and many others, of course, who were heavily involved in not only trafficking, but also selling of our ancestors, who benefited from us picking the cotton, from us dealing with the tobacco, and you name it, you name it. So it has to be something that, is well organized. And there are many Black organizations that have been tallying this up, and other organizations. So that's the first thing I would say is the federal government, then, of course, the state and local governments. And it is something that can be done because they've done it for everyone else. So it's not so far-fetched to believe that it can be organized, they can find it, and I believe that it should be done, not only according to us being Black people, but specifically bloodline, and you go according to the last names, you go according to those who have been affected directly here, Black Americans who built up this nation as a result of slavery. So it's not just all Black folks, it's specifically those affected by the circumstance, bloodline, last name, Black Americans primarily, and trace it back. And they have, the records of this. They genuinely do. So it's only, again, when it comes to the conversation dealing with our people, where all of a sudden it's no one knows what happened or the origin or the records, but they actually do.
Yeah. So Reza, you're. It sounds like Rizza Islam, you're embracing a lineage model for at least for American reparations.
Correct.
What about? Okay, I have two follow-up questions there. One is, I've always had a concern. I have no problem with the specific class idea of a class of people that is owed a debt, right? As we know that. With the termination of affirmative action, DEI, and anything supposedly race-based in this country, a specific lineage claim makes sense. And we also know that our ancestors have suffered specific harms and have had specific victories, right? And also built this country. But what about those folks who ran away and changed their names? What about those folks who joined maroon communities like, happened all across this country? I was talking with the Burgess brothers on this show. They're trying to get their land back in Northern California. Their forefathers ran from enslavement, changed their names, and purposely, hid in plain sight so that they could maintain their freedom. How do we unpack all of that and not miss the unhoused person that doesn't have that data or those pieces of paper, or the American enslaved person who purposely evaded the system?
Absolutely. Well, as far as they can go back with any record, because the interesting thing is, for those who did change that, there are records of it being changed and what it was changed from. And there are certain records. I know the Freedmen's record. There are others as well that have a certain amount of names, a certain connection of names, and then it also has some that were changed, just like they have names that were changed when it comes to our ancestors being bought and purchased as slaves, their name before it and the name that they were given under the slave master. So there are records enough that can connect enough. And although they've done their best in some instances to try to get rid of some of those records, because that's kind of what you do when you're a criminal. You want to get rid of the evidence of the crime. There's still some records somewhere, and there is enough. And as I said, there are many organizations that have been collecting this data to justify reparations. And I mean, they've been doing a beautiful job all across the country. So even in that light, I would say that may be in the minority, meaning those who don't have a record. Those who changed their name, ran from slavery, etc. But I believe in the majority of those who were affected, Black Americans primarily, and then all others, indirectly, I believe there is some record enough to justify the connection, to prove the crime, and to justify reparations to repair the damage that was done.
Talking with Rizza Islam, and we're talking reparations like we do every Friday. We'll continue this conversation after news, traffic, and sports, only right here.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is touting his fiscal 2026 budget as the best budget ever. It's a $115 billion plan that focuses on public safety, affordability, and quality of life issues. The mayor notes that there are no tax increases or job cuts.
We have not raised any taxes. We have not laid off any employees.
Mayor Adams says he's proud of that and will deal with whatever comes. A memorial to those killed in the Uvalde school shooting has been vandalized. The town's police chief called it senseless and cruel and says it has inflicted more pain in the Texas town west of San Antonio. Uvalde police say they are working to identify the individuals responsible and will hold them accountable. And jury selection starts Monday in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial after he rejected a plea deal. Little is known about the deal other than it included a lighter sentence in exchange for a guilty plea. He faces life in prison if convicted. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Is this the title?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers get it done. They avoided elimination in the NBA playoffs Thursday night with a 111-105 win over the Denver Nuggets at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. The first round series is tied at 3-3. Game 7 is Saturday in Denver at 4:30. Live coverage on TNT. The Clippers got a strong game last night from their big three. James Harden led the way with 28 points. Kawhi Leonard, knock on wood, had 27 points and 10 rebounds. Norman Powell dropped 24. If the Clippers can go into Denver and win Game 7, they would move on to the second round to face the winner of the Houston Golden State series. Golden State is up 3-2. They can close out the series tonight at home in Game 6. Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka said significant changes with the roster will happen in the offseason. He emphasized that LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves will not be a part of any trade talks. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. With so many shows on our station weekdays and weekends, it's hard for me to keep track of all the guests who are actually in studio on any given day. I wish I'd known in advance that LADA Nathan Hochman was coming in studio for a recent interview. Had I known, I would have loved to have personally greeted him and then asked him why LA City Council member Karen Price is being criminally prosecuted for allegations of misconduct similar to the conflict of interest violations for which former City Council member Kevin De Leon is only being fined. What's that about, Mr. DA? In fairness to Mr. Hochman, it was former DA George Gascon who actually filed felony charges against Councilman Price. I opined then on how these criminal charges against Price did not pass the smell test. I was concerned then that this was yet another wayward prosecution of a high-profile black elected, not to mention a waste of taxpayer money. I am even more convinced now that this is a hot mess. To be clear, Neither you or I want a bunch of self-serving, greedy, conflict of interest criminals managing the people's business inside LA City Hall. But we also don't want selective or targeted prosecution of black politicians. We've seen that movie before, and we don't need a sequel. It's hard to watch Kevin De Leon get away with paying an $18,000 fine for repeated ethics violations, what he calls an oversight, and at the same time, watch the DA's office continue its criminal prosecution of Kern Price for issues allegedly involving his wife's clients. Motions, I might add, that were passed unanimously by the LA City Councilman. What are you saying, Tavis? I'm glad you asked. D.A. Hochman did not start this inquisition, but he certainly has the power to stop it. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Fundamental fairness. In the absence of fundamental fairness, we experience a cascade of deteriorating conditions. The erosion of trust, the weakening of social cohesion, alienation, marginalization, the legitimacy of authority diminishes, cynicism and disengagement grow, and ultimately, people abandon civic participation altogether. Fundamental fairness, Mr. Hochman, that's all we ask. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Author and activist NOI member Rizza Islam is my guest on this Freedmen Friday. And we've been talking about, just your view on reparations. I was speaking on the UN and their permanent session on people of African descent, and specifically how they supported CARICOM, as we see Jamaica, Barbados, and other nations, Caribbean black nations, pushing for reparations from UK, from the other side of the pond. And they have, to be clear, they've spoken in support of reparations for all people of African descent, wherever they might be in the diaspora. There's a movement in Africa. Many times those are calling for repair from Western nations. South Africa obviously would be the Dutch. Zimbabwe, it would be the German. If you look at what's happening with Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso, but you also have Mali and Niger. They're calling for reparations, as is Haiti from the French. What about that global context? I mean, you were very clear in your statement about lineage-based reparations for Black American descendants of enslaved persons. What about the global claim?
Well, of course, justice cannot be withheld and solely claimed by Black Americans. So as I said earlier, again, any nation of people who has been dealt an injustice by this government and or any government really should have that injustice repaired. And I specified Black people primarily in America first because that's what I am, as a Black man here in America. But I definitely believe that any injustice that has happened and has fell upon any person of any nation, that should be repaired by the nation that put that inflicted that on those people. So I definitely agree that all of our brothers and sisters across the diaspora deserve that.
You're just focusing here at home because we got to sweep around our own front door? Is that the idea?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we should start here first in order for us to help others. But I definitely believe that other nations should be doing the same exact thing at the same exact time. They deserve that. And there are plenty of nations who are, as you have already mentioned, actually considering it, looking at it, outlining, okay, how can it be done, etc. So it is possible. And as I said earlier at the beginning of the show, we're not sitting here holding our breath, saying, I'm not going to get up and move or do anything until reparations are paid. No, we're hard-working people. We have jobs. We created businesses. We're employing ourselves. We're creating jobs to employ others. So we're working hard. This is not a handout. This, again, is a call for reparatory justice for a wrong that needs to be righted. So everyone inflicted or afflicted by such a thing should receive that justice.
Do you think our focus on what Tariq Nasheed calls FBA's Foundational Black Americans or ADOS or the various other lineage, some aspects of the lineage-based modern reparations movement, moving away from solidarity with CARICOM or solidarity with Haiti and others, is dividing Black people globally?
Well, that's actually a good question, because self-love, I would say in that context, that could be seen more as a self-love circumstance, or as you were asking earlier, Black people in America first circumstance. But that's how it is for everyone when it comes to what happened to their people first. It doesn't exclude everyone else. It just, we have to guarantee that this is being done for us, because everyone else has to guarantee that it's being done for them. I agree with CARICOM and other, movements in other nations that are fighting for the same thing for their people as a result of what took place by those different governments. We want the same exact thing. And I don't believe that it should be divisive. I believe it should be a unity movement where we all are calling for these nations to give back and repair the damage that was done, whether it was the UK dealing with certain circumstances, all the nations of Europe when it comes to the Berlin Conference and all the way down prior to and after, and them calling for the U.S. government to repair what was done to Black people here in America as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Everyone should be calling for these nations to make that wrong right. So it should not become divisive. That's the one thing I disagree with. It should not become divisive. It should actually unite us as a people, at least on the mindset of reparatory justice. And
then, of course, the flip side of that question would be, does the Pan-Africanist movement minimize the specific contributions of Black Americans and kind of lump us all together? I know that's what some reparationists complain of. And how do you see that? Yes, there is a reality where certain individuals will kind of glaze over everyone with the same brush to get rid of the individual circumstances that need of individual attention. Those details that do separate, where certain individuals or groups of individuals, let's say Black Americans specifically, where contributions were more and or specific, the inventions, the building of certain things here, not just the cotton fields, also the buck breaking farms where they literally were breeding us here, particularly, and a lot of other things. And some of these things took place in other areas as well, but in particularly how the U.S. government did what they did, those things are, things that should be looked at as individual circumstances and handled as such. So it cannot be looked at, from the lens of a certain movement, because it may take away from certain contributions. So I could see how that could be a problem, because you have certain movements here that look at it differently from the Pan-Africanist movement, or from the Pan-Africanists, you have the Africans who have certain mentalities about how things should go. So it shouldn't be based on any individual's mindset or movement. It should be based on exactly what happened, the actual facts, and what needs to be repaired based upon the actual circumstances. Okay, I'm going to ask you let me ask you this first. Have you ever had your DNA done? Oh, no, I've never sent my DNA to any one of these government monitored organizations. No, the reason I laugh like that, Rizza, is because I would love to know, the specific nations of my African origin, but I also hesitate to give anybody my DNA voluntarily. And it's not that I'm a criminal, but you see what happened with 23andMe. Now they've gone bankrupt, and they're selling all those DNA samples of all of those folks to the highest bidder. Ugh. Mm-hmm. So you're fine never finding out. Well, you know what, Dominic, this is, I chose to go old school, right? And this is something that some of us sadly don't realize until it's too late, meaning getting in touch with our ancestors and or the eldest of our family before they transition into ancestors. So our grandparents, if we have a grandparent who is alive, who knows this, if we have a family member who knows the record, who knows the history, who can point us in the direction, who has the documents, the birth certificates, anything like that. I have sat with my grandmother on my mother's side, and she told me so much of where our family came from on that side. The names, the connections, the lineage.
the side of us, the Cape Verdean West African connection side, to how our lineage was trafficked from West Africa, that connection of that bloodline. But then again, to juxtapose that, I've talked to my father about the connection here in America, how born and raised right here, Compton, California, Los Angeles, California, how our bloodline goes deep into this part of the country and then into the South because of what happened in the slavery circumstance. So I've done my due diligence to ask my family to trace it back as far as possible, and I have learned both sides to see exactly what happened. And so I've justified it that way, and it has checked out. But I know a lot of people don't have, they're not that fortunate to where they have grandparents alive, etc. So, but I definitely have not endorsed the DNA test in that way. But there should be a way to make it happen to where our DNA won't be sold, and I know it's difficult.
Not even African ancestry, not even the black-owned one you won't do.
Oh, no. And you know what? No shade at all to them, but I don't trust any data collecting organization that massive that I know for a fact the government has to have its hands in it.
Yeah.
There is no way that they won't have their hands in it. And it's, so it's not a negative, but it's...
Well,
it's
it could be. I mean, it could be a negative.
Yeah, right,
when they start cloning little Rizza Islams. I mean, not to go down a rabbit hole, but I've been struggling with this because I really want to have my DNA done, but I really don't want to send it to a company, which is why, even though I lead trips to Africa every year, I haven't had my DNA done yet. Forensic accountant says how many illegitimate children of slave owners were disinherited by default. And so when you talk about doing the lineage, going to parents and grandparents, A, it may not go all the way back to Africa, and B, are we going to be missing people, children, veins of communities that were covered up or minimalized by the fact that they are, on one side of their ancestry, is an enslaver.
That is a reality as well. That is a reality as well, and a reality that some people have come to grips with as a result of meeting with their grandparents or parents, not just from those who have done these DNA traces or gone to look at certain records. Because I know certain artists, that was a very famous thing in that I think the late 80s, early 90s, where they would have someone trace it and they would find out, oh my God, I'm actually connected to the actual slave master and not the slave, and that is a reality. But again, that reality is there, but the other is also.
Well, many times you could be connected to both. I mean, your ancestors could be having a whole war inside your DNA. That's why I think this investigation and understanding of our ancestors that you describe is really important. Because how can you make peace with it if you don't even know what's happening in there?
Precisely. Yeah, it's something. Either way, we have to know the history, and that's why our history was removed as much as possible. That's why they focused on us not reading, not connecting with family, not talking to family on the plantation and right before, during that transitional period, because they know if you bring down the line, the bloodline, the mindset of where we come from, our language, our culture, our history, then you cannot enslave us entirely. You cannot trap us entirely, because we know where we came from, which means we have an idea of where we are now and where we can go in the future. So it is that demonstrates the very reason why reparations are needed, even in that sense, because it's like, wow, we have to go do all this searching just to find what happened to us, to connect us to this history. We know it has happened, but some of us are like, wow, I just don't know when and where, who, I can find to prove, the source of this overall damaging circumstance that we're in as of now. I know it happened, but wow, they really did a good job of making sure it will be difficult to find the proof.
Reza Islam is my guest. It's a Freedmen Friday. We're unpacking reparations on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
At Providence, health equity is the foundation of our community health initiatives, ensuring care reaches those who need it most. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in America. African Americans face a higher risk of life-threatening issues like hypertension, the number one cause of stroke. 55% of Black adults have high blood pressure. The good news is 80% of heart disease is preventable with healthy lifestyle changes and patient-centered care provided by the Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. From routine screenings to advanced procedures, Providence provides comprehensive care for the heart conditions that overly impact our community by ensuring patients receive treatments that's tailored to their needs. Let's stop the trend of being 30% more likely to die from heart-related problems. Take charge of your heart health with world-class cardiologists who deliver the compassionate care you deserve. Visit providence.org/SoCalHeart. That's providence.org/SoCalHeart to request an appointment.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number, because Ray, he's going to text it live, and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Author, influencer, and a member of the Nation of Islam, Rizza Islam, is my guest. We're talking reparations because it's Friday, and we do that every Friday around this time, Rizza. But I know you. I understand you have an event coming up. Let's let folks know if you'd like to.
Absolutely. Yes. So there are two events. One is tonight, actually, at the Compton Airport, and this is dealing with what took place basically over the last 4.5 to 5 years, from the pandemic to the lies, the corruption, the mandates, and all things in between. And even prior to this, dealing with shots, inoculations, vaccines, and what have you. And I'm bringing scientists directly to Compton. This is a free event. This will be from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Compton Airport, specifically at the Tomorrow's Aeronautical Museum. And the scientists will be there, one, to do presentations dealing with the shots as well as a childhood schedule. So parents, who have children on the autism spectrum are recommended to be there, as well as anybody else. And then also, one of the scientists who work directly under Anthony Fauci will be there. Work with the NIH, CDC, etc. will be there, and they will be going over data exposing exactly what happened with the COVID shots, the circumstances, who did what, all the information that I was exposing over the last few years. They're going to be going into that in detail, and the people will be able to ask them questions live, unscripted, directly, to find out if they were crazy or were they right for either not taking it, being skeptical, or what have you.
Right. So you're getting your RFK on tonight at the Compton Airport at the Tomorrow's Aeronautical Museum. And then you have another event?
Yes. Tomorrow, which is Saturday, from 10 to 6 at the Dollar Hive Community Center. This is at the Compton Community Center, the Dollar Hive. We have an event dealing with the attack on the reproductive health system. And I have about 8 presenters. I'm going to be the final presenter. We're going to go over everything dealing with PCOS, fibroids, endometriosis, and more, dealing with women, prostate issues, low sperm count, motility issues, low testosterone issues, all of that, and what it is that is causing these things, not just from the food, air, and different chemicals, but certain things that we're putting on our bodies, certain things that we, I would say, are connecting ourselves to that we have no idea that may be causing these things, like for women, pads that they use monthly. Many of the chemicals are directly connected to, as I said, endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, etc. So we have some of the best medical professionals that are doing presentations, as well as PhD scientists, and myself. Again, I will be doing presentations, and we have solutions handling all of these things as well. So it's going to be a powerful event, and I recommend everyone show up. That is free as well at the Dollar High Community Center, and go to RizzaIslam.com to see the flyer and to RSVP. Both events are free.
All right. Dollar High Center, where everything happens in Compton. Yeah, we got a lot of conversation going on in the chat. Folks saying it. Forensic Accountant says, I'll never forget the look on Pharrell Williams' face when Skip Gates showed him a picture of his slave owner ancestor. Somebody asks, when should we start teaching our children about the white supremacy? Molly Bell reminds us that Dr. Francis Cress Welsing called it the system of white supremacy, so that we don't end up calling them supreme in the offing. And Fahima reminds us that Dr. Gina Page of African ancestry was the original, DNA tester, and that all the others are knockoffs. I don't know if you want to respond to any of that from the chat room.
I'll just add something to that. When it comes to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, all women and men should read the ISIS papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. If you have not, that should be something that we should all read. One, to get an overall deep understanding of exactly what this system is. We should also look at the work of our brother, the late great Neely Fuller, and the compensatory program, the compensatory book that goes over the entire outlining of exactly what the system is, how it is comprised, and its different components, etc. And there, of course, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Message to the Black Man, of course, a classic because of how it goes into the spiritual side of things, then brings it to the economic, etc., and the Fall of America as well. All these books and references should be looked at so that we can have a comprehensive understanding. And as soon as your child is making sounds, is when you should educate them.
As soon as which means when they come, before they come out of the womb, then, because they be making sound. Reza Islam, I want to ask you this, because a lot of folks that make this argument, I would imagine, are followers of you. This is one I hear from black people, particularly men. You're wasting your time. This ain't never going to happen. Reparations is a pipe dream.
Well, number one, I don't think one individual who has lost their wind as it pertains to the ability to remain consistent speaks for all of us. So some of our people, definitely, they just don't have the stamina. It is a difficult thing to deal with this, to have the mental stamina, the spiritual stamina, the emotional stamina to deal with this, to even have these conversations, to have to go back and forth. So the possibility of it even being a reality that reparations are possible becomes less and less likely in certain minds. But I am of the belief and the understanding that not only is it possible, but it will happen. It doesn't matter if it happens now or in the next year or two. I believe it will happen because it must happen. And as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, and Minister Farrakhan has said, that the U.S. government in America would be wise to pay reparations and to repair the damage that was done, because we all know that what goes around comes around, and the sins that have been given will have some type of effect, result in punishment. So if they want to help when it comes to the judgment on this nation, then maybe they should do right by those who they enslaved and destroyed.
Speaking of those ancestors, Neely Fuller and Francis Cress Welsing, both of whom I interviewed on more than one occasion, I want to say rest in peace to Dr. Juwanza Kunjufu, who we lost this week, another person I talked to many times and a big contributor to our understanding. Reza Islam, we got a minute here. What would you like to leave us with?
Number one, we as a people have risen and have bounced back from some of the worst atrocities, if not the worst atrocity that has befallen the people. And there are people all over the world who have had their share of slavery, enslavement, the removal of their name, language, culture, religion, God, etc. We know there are plenty of people all over the world who have had these issues. However, when it comes to our people, we have to remember that, number one, we have the ability to bounce back because we are God's people, meaning the original man and woman, and there are plenty of people who feel the same, but we have it in our blood. We have it in who we are in our very being, the ability to bounce back from anything, and we have proven that time and time again. So we don't have to wait for a handout that people say is a handout, but it's a repair. We can repair ourselves while waiting for the government to do their share. And as long as we continue to fight, remain strong, keep our minds set on God and on unity as a people, I believe, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, that our unity is more powerful than a hydrogen or an atomic bomb. And with that explosion, we will truly be successful as people.
RizzaIslam.com if you want to get info on those events. Rizza, thank you so much for being with me this morning.
Thank you again for honoring me as being a guest.
We're going to talk race, and that's a perfect segue. Jay French, the rap artist and activist, will join us next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is touting his fiscal 2026 budget as the best budget ever. It's a $115 billion plan that focuses on public safety, affordability, and quality of life issues. The mayor notes that there are no tax increases or job cuts.
We have not raised any taxes. We have not laid off any employees.
Mayor Adams says he's proud of that and will deal with whatever comes. A memorial to those killed in the Uvalde school shooting has been vandalized. The town's police chief called it senseless and cruel and says it has